Hi, this is Chris Smith of Local Joe's. At Local Joe's, we help local business. Hi, this is Chris Smith with Local Joe's.
This is City Pulse Newsmakers, a weekly look at the issues and the people behind them in Greater Lansing. Brought to you by City Pulse, Lansing's weekly alternative newspaper. And now, here's your host, City Pulse publisher, Burl Schwartz.
Hello and welcome to City Pulse Newsmakers. I'm Ty Forker, City Pulse Arts and Culture Editor, sitting in for Burl Schwartz, who's on vacation this week. And we have a crew of people here from our upcoming People issue, which is going to be coming out on January 6th. We have Nick Stahersky and Ryan Clater and Twyla Birdsong, and we'll let them get into what each of them do in just a minute here. We'll start over here with Nick. Tell us about your work at Eightfold Creative.
Yeah. So I'm the executive producer at Eightfold. We do commercial production. Our primary focus is helping businesses, brand services, brand managers, advertisers. We help them find the experience in their product or service. We really help them curate a story behind it and help engage with their audiences. So we don't really like to necessarily tell the features or all the benefits. We'd really like to show the experience, more of a storyline with our type of production.
Yeah, and tell me how did you get into this field of video making, video storytelling, visual medium?
Well, long story short, really grew up in a culture of snowboarding, which sounds a little bit irrelevant or silly, but that got me into filmmaking personally. And after some investments into equipment, I kind of was like, how do I pay this off at age 16? And you got a $6,000 to $10,000 worth of money out for equipment. You start thinking in a business perspective, I've got to pay this off now. And I started relating that to branding myself, and really started working with clients and managing money from a younger age, and that brought me to Michigan State for a business marketing major. While I was at State in my second year, I kind of had made a decision, instead of taking more of a corporate route and doing traditional internships, I developed the company as a sophomore in college. And by the time I graduated, and I wanted to have an established business with with an existing client base, quality work, a team of people that shared the same vision, and I was able to do that by graduation, and that kind of gave me stepping stones to lead the business to the next level after graduation and continuing on to where we are today.
Yeah, and what year did you found the company?
3 years ago.
3 years ago.
Yep.
And who are some of the clients you work with? What's a sample of the kind of things you've?
Yeah, so we work with 7 of the top 10 employers in the Lansing area, as well as regionally and nationally. We'll do production for companies out in LA and New York, where we're doing secondary photography here in Michigan that can come in at a lower cost than in those hotbed markets. Then from a more local standpoint, we've worked with Emergent, BioSolutions, Delta Dental, Dart, Gillespie Group, Douglas J. Like I said, 7 of probably the top 10 employers, including Michigan State, we've done production for. So yeah, we really like to focus on the cinematic detail in our production, kind of really focus on every shot, every frame, every second of what we're doing. And we utilize a Red Epic Dragon, which is a camera that we own in-house, which is a great piece of machinery. So so it's a really fun opportunity, fortunate to be kind of doing this here in this Lansing area.
Yeah, and where did you grow up? Where are you originally from?
Originally from Brighton, Michigan, just 40 minutes away here. My story kind of makes sense. Grew up snowboarding at Mount Brighton, got into film. That led me to 40 minutes away, Michigan State, business major, and it kind of all lays out there. And like I said, real excited to be doing production here, in Michigan.
Great. And what is it about the visual medium that you think the video medium that really helps get a message across in a different way?
For me, George Lois is a famous American ad executive, and he was the one that founded, I Want My MTV back in the early 80s and whatnot. And what, he kind of talks about advertising as a whole. It's one of the best ways to leverage mass communication advertising. I mean, if you say a car looks good and it runs good, people will believe that. So that mass communication is really amazing, and I kind of love that ability to, make impressions across an entire state, a group of, 24-year-olds, and making, over a couple million impressions in a media buy period, communicating a message. But when you start to align that message with brands that really like to do, improve society, so for example, Dove, Dove's able to communicate a message through video, improve their bottom line, but most importantly, improve women's, own self-expression and improve their, how much respect they have for themselves and their own inner beauty. So it's like you're able to make money for yourself, improve the bottom line of a business, but also, improve the self-image and inner beauty of women as a whole, all three. It's kind of a really fun thing, and being in this industry, we get to work with Douglas J in fashion, then we get to work with Gillespie Group, which is more development. So it's just fun to be able to be on so many different platforms, communicating different messages. And again, as we were growing, we're being more selective in who we work with, and the ones that have that mission statement to not only just make money, but also to improve the community at a grassroots level. It's a really fun kind of avenue to take, cause marketing, essentially.
Yeah. And we're kind of reaching the end of 2015 here. Do you have any goals for next year? Do you have any business resolutions, if you will, for?
Yeah, it's a little early to speak, but I'd love to take an opportunity to invest more into the Mid-Michigan area and some property for the business, and as well as expand the business out of the Mid-Michigan area to be working primarily hubbed here, but to be doing more production out of state and all over, and bringing business and creating more culture for Lansing too. Lansing has so much great stuff going on, but what we can do is help take all the great things going on, curate more culture, but then actually communicate and let other people from other different regions know about what's going on in in Rio Town, what's going on in Old Town, and all the festivals. So really looking to be able to engage in the community more, communicate some of the great things that are going on here, but as well do some business at a national level.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to pivot over here. We're going to go over here to Ryan.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Ryan, I know you wear several hats in your career, but give us the rundown of the kind of things that you are into.
All right. Well, first, thanks for having me on here. I really appreciate it, and I'll see if I can follow up Nick. I feel like I should hire you after that. So
Thank you.
I am a comic book artist. I write and illustrate a series of autobiographical comics, and I also teach at Michigan State University. I teach a few comics classes there, and I'm also spearheading a comics minor at MSU right now. So it got unanimous departmental approval and made its way through college curriculum committee and just has to pass through university curriculum committee, and then it will be officially on the books. So after teaching some of these classes for a little over half a dozen years now, looks like we're going to have an official program for them. So I'm really excited about that.
That's great. So tell me about how did you learn to make comics, and how did you develop your art?
Well, as I tell my youngsters, I wish this class was around when I was a kid, but I just kind of had to go it on my own. I got my undergraduate degree in art studio from the University of California, Santa Barbara, and when I was done, I got really interested in comics and did an internship at Marvel Comics in New York in 2003. And after that, I began producing my own comics and have been doing so ever since. So been producing my own comics for over a decade now, but just networking with people from professional colorists to letters when I was at Marvel to sitting in on print and production meetings and learning the ins and outs of how to produce a professionally published comic by any means necessary.
Yeah. And have you noticed, obviously the big thing right now is these comic book movies and television shows, and it seems like they can't make these movies fast enough. And do you feel like that's driven more interest back to the printed medium? Have you noticed any of that?
I don't know how many people who go out and see a Spider-Man movie or an Avengers movie go into a comic book store to go seek out the printed page experience. It's fine that that's happening. It's not where my interests lie. I like reading more independent books, alternative comics or European comics, and I show all forms of comics in my class, from American mainstream superhero comics to Japanese manga to European comics, alternative comics, self-published comics. So I can kind of hit all interests of my students because there's good examples to be shown in all of those particular genres.
Yeah, and what trends do you notice that maybe people who aren't into comic culture or graphic novel culture, what are some trends that maybe are out there that people are either surprised to find out about or that you think are really intriguing?
I think the mass populace is generally surprised to find out that all genres exist in comics. If you're into, romantic comedies or autobiography or historical fiction or horror or humor or anything, it exists in comics. There's a comic by a European cartoonist who exchanged places with a vintner, and he basically tended this guy's fields and used the tractor and made the wine, and the vintner kind of tagged along with the cartoonist as he would do the convention circuit and talk to publishers and tried his hand at comics. And it was interesting to see this exchange that happened. So there's just all sorts of interesting work being put out right now in comics. So if you have an interest, it exists in comics.
Yeah, and then tell us the name of your publishing house that you run.
Yeah, I self-publish under the name Elephant Eater Comics, which is a saying that my dad used to tell me as a kid all the time. He'd say, well, it's like eating an elephant. You just do it one bite at a time, and before you know it, you're done. So I always think about that to kind of keep me grounded and pay tribute to my pops, too.
Yeah. So what's it like, approaching comics from an academic standpoint? Do you feel like you had to fight to earn your place in academia, or have you been pretty well supported at the university?
Well, I'll take it back a little further to graduate school. And when I initially did my graduate studies, I assumed that comics would not be accepted in graduate school, which is weird because I even used comics to get into grad school. So looking back at myself at that time, I don't know why I thought that. But luckily my professors saw me carrying around a sketchbook and doing these illustrations, and they took an interest in that, and they said, what are you doing? And once I explained it, they said, well, you need to be doing this. Isn't this what you want to do? And when I said yes, it was sort of a light bulb moment, which looking back, it's sort of a well, duh moment, but I'm glad I took that path. So yes, there were professors in graduate school that questioned whether or not comics could be fine art, but then you make intertextual references within your work, and you can show that comics can comment on fine art and vice versa. And as far as MSU is concerned, they've been really accepting. I started teaching the first comics class there in 2009, and we also have the largest public collection of comics in the entire world at MSU. Anybody can come, anybody can check out these books, and it's quite rare that I find a hole in their collection. And usually when I do, I talk to the comics bibliographer, Randy Scott, and he's ordered it the next day. Yeah. So it's a really fantastic place, with not only the comics classes, but the largest collection. And also we have a yearly comics forum, which I direct, that brings professional practicing cartoonists in. We've had keynote speakers that are all award-winning cartoonists. This year, in 2016, we have Sergio Aragones coming, who, if you don't know that name, he's the most awarded cartoonist in all of history. He's worked for Mad Magazine for over 50 years, doing those tiny, tiny comics in the margins, and he has his own creator-owned series called Gru the Wanderer.
Cool. And then, so let's talk about this MSU comic book collection, because
Sure.
I haven't been there yet, but I'm intrigued by it.
Oh, shame on you.
Yeah. So tell me about the variety. I know I get kind of caught up in what's going on in the U.S. because that's the easiest. But tell me about this international selection of comics that they've really pulled into this collection.
Yeah, the comics bibliographer, Randy Scott, has a network of people who he knows when they travel to different countries, he asks them, can you bring back some comics? Like my wife and I took a trip to Mali, West Africa, and we brought back comics and a poster from a convention that they were having that just happened to be going on when we were there. But they have European comics, a huge selection of Asian comics, African comics, American comics, of course. And they even have some comics from North Korea. It's just an amazing collection. And Randy Scott, who I keep mentioning, is just so knowledgeable and so nice. I encourage you to chat with him if you see him there. He's an old Santa Claus looking guy with a big beard and white hair. And when I was sitting there in the reading room one day, I was looking through this esoteric European magazine about comics, and just offhandedly I pointed to an artist and I said, "Oh, this looks really interesting. I've never seen this before." And he peers over my shoulder and he says, "That's artist so-and-so. We have X number of books by them. I'll be right back." And he brings me this stack of comics from an artist who I'd never heard of before, and he could just find it off the top of his head.
Yeah, and so stylistically, what do you notice is that like maybe changes when you go over to Africa or go to Asia, and you get that mix of comic book style with the local flavor? What do you notice when you go through these?
Yeah. It's sort of hard to pin down an entire continent and what they do in a particular medium. It's like, how do Americans sing? Or there's lots of different genres that are around, but in like Japanese manga, they tend to have shorter speech and quicker shots and move pretty fast. They'll also conversely take time with their establishing shots, whereas in America, like in film, you'll see an establishing shot of a building and then boom, you're inside and the narrative is unfolding. Whereas in manga, traditionally, they'll take a little more time and show these aspect to aspect shots of the entire environment, like maybe there's clouds and then the building and some birds flying and then something else, and then they'll get into the narrative. So they'll kind of paint the establishing shot a little more than American comics do. European comics seem to have a little more diversity in what people will buy, whereas in America, mainstream comics means capes and tights. But that's not to say that alternative comics don't exist in America too.
Yeah, and what are you reading right now? What's a series or a novel that you're really drawn into at the moment?
I usually follow creators more than I do a particular title, but I've been a huge fan of Sergio Aragonés ever since I was 8 years old, so I'm really proud to be bringing him here this year. But outside of a plug for the MSU Comics Forum, I'm also really interested in Craig Thompson, who just put out a book from Scholastic this year, and I like Amity Thompson, and I could go on the list of creators that I'm interested in.
Well, great. Well, we'll slide along here. We'll go to Twyla.
Thank you.
So thanks for being here with us, Twyla.
My pleasure.
And tell us a little bit about what you do as a singer and entertainer.
I love to bring joy to people through song, through entertaining. I do more than just sing up there. I really try and engage with the audience and allow them to feel what I'm feeling, whether it's joy, sometimes pain, and just bring them out of that.
Yeah, and then, because I noticed this on your Facebook bio, you talk about, I'm going to get the words wrong, but a joyful singing of the blues, and people don't put those two words together very often. Tell me about what it is about blues that excites you or really speaks to you.
Well, I grew up in, going to church and singing in the gospel choir, and so when I first started doing blues, I'm coming from a background where my grandfather was a minister and my mom is a minister, so it was kind of a conflict there of me feeling like that, I couldn't do both. But at the time when I started singing, I started in a garage band, and some guys I knew I used to work at Fisher Body, they had me come over and start singing with them. And at the time I was going through a lot of depression and panic attacks, and that really helped me come out of that. Even though I still had the belief in God and that He, can heal and bring you joy, but just singing the blues really allowed me to express what I was feeling and get through it.
Great, yeah, and you said you were brought up in a fairly conservative household, at least musically. And so how did you come across, how did you stumble onto the blues and these other styles of music?
Well, we were children. We were supposed to not be listening to it, but my sister, whenever my mom wasn't there, she had it on. And I'm from Michigan City, Indiana, and so every time we'd go down to take a trip down to Indiana, we'd be with my uncle in his Cadillac, and he'd be playing ZZ Hill and B.B. King, and I don't know, that just spoke to me. And to me, it was it was a correlation between the music riffs of blues and gospel. They may say something different. To me, gospel is speaking of hope, and blues is just raw. This is how it is right now, and you're going to get through it. But this is some messed up stuff you're going through right now. So yeah, just going down to Michigan City, Indiana, and hearing that, and I love the sound.
Great. And are you working on an album right now?
I am. I've been working on it for a while, and I found out trying to do this on my own is more than just the notion, and trying to get it how I want it. I have one CD out there with I did with the Hoopties a few years ago. I also won the Capital Area Blues Society Blues Brawl with the Hoopties a few years ago. And but now I'm trying to go out on my own and really get my sound that I hear in my soul and my spirit out, which is like still blues, late in the blues, but a little rock edge, with a little R&B in there. And got a new guy in Flint that he'll be helping me produce. So hopefully next year, 2016.
All right, we'll look forward to that. And tell me about, so you recently you won a competition, the Blues Brawl, and you're going to be going to Memphis. So tell me about the competition, and then about this opportunity to go perform.
So each year, every blues society across the world, this is international, they send representatives down to Memphis, Tennessee, was the International Blues Challenge. And this year, Capital Area Blues Society is Lansing area, and my band was the winner. And then they have a solo duo act, Stan Basinski and I'm sorry,
Ben Hall.
Ben Hall,
right?
thank you.
Yeah.
Will be going as the duo act. And a couple of years ago, I won the duo act with Mike Aia. He's leader of Ritmo, but I wanted to go back to Memphis, and so he went down there with me. But this year I'm going with a great group of guys. It's like Mike Smalley on bass, Clarence Booney Daughtery on drums, his wife Angel Daughtery support vocals, and Tyler Jensen on keys, and Steve Forgery, which is Frog. A lot of people know him as Frog in Lansing, on guitar, and I'm feeling really confident about our chances down there.
Good. And what's the competition like once you get there? Do you do a full set, or do you get a couple songs to impress them, or what's the format?
We have 20 minutes rigidly, like on and off stage. Impress them in 20 minutes. Do your thing, and so you get 2 days of that, where you automatically compete 2 days, and then if you win that second day, then you progress to the second set of it, and then you perform that night. If you win that night, you go again, and then if you win that night, it's the grand finale where they pick, like, I think it's 10 people. So they whittle it down from literally people from Germany, Argentina, Africa, everywhere. It's international, and they are down there. I think it might be 500 bands. I'm not even sure how many bands are, but it's down on Bill Street, where they have music going consecutively all down Bill Street.
Yeah, and what's it like, because you've gone before, what's it like to kind of be surrounded by all these musicians from around the world who are working in this genre?
First time it was so intimidating because I didn't know what to expect, and but after the second time, I made sure I went down there the second time because I was a little bit more open to see what it really is. It's really a networking opportunity to really talk to people from other countries and from the United States and see what they're doing, listen to their music, because I'm a music lover. I'm not just a singer, I'm a music lover, so I love listening to other people and what they're doing. So I really like the opportunity to meet other people. I have friends still that I met from down there, and associates now that we collaborate with different things.
Yeah, and why don't you tell me about who are some of your musical, singers that you really look to for inspiration, or who have really influenced the way you sing?
Well, the ones that I don't know, of course, growing up listening to Aretha Franklin, and she has that exactly how I like to characterize myself as with the gospel. She's done the jazz, blues influence, and vocally superior. I love some Mary J. Blige, you know, that's showing that I'm a little younger. But locally, I've really taken to Cherie Williams. She's an international recording artist, gospel blues, rock. And then Thornetta Davis out of Detroit, Michigan, who just got crowned Queen of Detroit Blues. And Ramona Collins, they really mentored me in how, not just musically, but singing, how you handle your business, and how you conduct yourself with a band, how you present yourself on stage. They've really taken me under their wings.
Great. And I'll give you the same kind of question I asked Nick earlier. We'll go musically. What's your musical resolutions for 2016? I know you want to put this album out. Is there anything else you're really hoping to do this year?
January we're going on to Memphis, and I plan on coming back as a winner.
Yeah.
But also I love producing musical shows. For the last few years I've done produced some musical shows, and I'm looking to in the spring to produce a show, and also in October. But leading up to that, I'll also have some individual shows that I'll be doing myself. They'll lead up to 2 grand finales.
Great. And tell me about, if people want to learn more about you or more about your music, where's the best place for them to find you and keep track of you?
Like everyone else, I think, in America and the world, I'm Facebook crazy. So you can go on Facebook and find out what I'm doing and interact with me. I love interacting with people. But I have 2 Facebook pages. I have a personal page, Twyla Birdsong. Both of them, and a music artist, Twyla Birdsong. I'll accept you as a friend if you don't act crazy. But I won't defriend you.
All right. We'll work our way back around. So Ryan, if you want to learn more about what you do, either at MSU or with Elephant Eater Comics, where's the best place to keep track of you?
Probably for my personal stuff would be at elephanteater.com, spelled like it sounds, like a person who eats elephants. And at MSU, once that comics minor is fully approved, then we should have a page on the art department's website there, art.msu.edu.
Great. And then Nick, if you want to learn more about Eightfold Creative or see some examples even of what you do, where do you want to send them?
Yeah, obviously, quick Google search, Eightfold Creative in Lansing. The website's eightfold-creative.com. But being a total stereotype millennial, Instagram is the world. I feel like I've became irrelevant because just recently I realized that Instagram is the LinkedIn for the creative world. And so it's Eightfold's works up there, my profile, so Nick Stack and Eightfold Creative are both on Instagram, and that's honestly my favorite way to communicate with people, through Instagram. It's a fun platform, so.
Well, great. Well,
appreciate it.
We're approaching the end here, so thanks to Nick Stahersky, to Ryan Clater, and to Twyla Birdsong for being here today. As I said at the beginning, look for complete interviews with these 3, and with our full complement. We're going to have 10 people that we're highlighting. The People issue comes out January 6th. 10 people that City Pulse as a staff and as a newspaper has decided are doing interesting and creative things in the area. So it'll be a lot of fun. We got a wide variety of people, so look for that. Thanks again. This is City Pulse.